Hierarchies are comprised of a chain of command consisting of superiors and subordinates. This is exactly what the Roman centurion spoke of when he asked Jesus to heal his servant in Matthew chapter 8. The centurion replied, "Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." The centurion was basically comparing Jesus' spiritual authority to his own worldly authority, which obviously came from being part of a military hierarchy. Now, some might say Jesus agreed with this comparison. After all, Jesus did commend the centurion. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith." But read carefully, and you'll notice that Jesus only commended the centurion's faith, not his concept of spiritual authority. In fact, in a later chapter in this very same gospel, Jesus blatantly warns his own disciples not to follow the Roman example of authority. Remember, the Romans were the Gentiles who ruled over Israel during Jesus' lifetime, and this is what Jesus had to say about the way they ruled. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must become your servant." Was Jesus merely commenting on the attitudes of corrupt Roman rulers? Or was he also warning his disciples to stay away from their methods, such as subjugating one another under man-made positions of authority? If it was the latter, then Jesus' words take on an eerily prophetic meaning in this passage, since it was actually the Romans who would introduce hierarchy into the church some 300 years later. Also, if Jesus was commenting on man's inclination to subjugate one another, his disdain for this practice is certainly consistent with his Father's. Remember, God's original intent for Israel was a nation without any sort of man-made political system, but Israel begged God for a king instead. And even though God told Israel they were rejecting him by asking for an earthly authority to rule over them, he eventually agreed and gave them a kingship that lasted well over 400 years. In upcoming episodes of this series, we'll dig deeper into this idea and eventually discover that the urge to put one person in a superior position over another is a recurring inclination of fallen man, whereas God's ultimate desire has always been for every person to willingly humble themselves before God and others. Ultimately, hierarchy is fallen man's attempt to maintain order in the absence of humility. However, we have a long way to go before I've proven that. So I hope you'll join me again for my next installment in this series on church hierarchy. If you like this video, please check out the rest of my blog at churchanarchist.com. There you'll find other videos, cartoons, blog posts, and a lot more. Or if you prefer to simply watch my videos on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.